All right, so we were talking about the Ladino culture and the Ladino, actually not the culture, I'm sorry. We're talking about the Ladino language last time. And we just talk about it a little bit more. Many people think that the Ladino language was only spoken in Greece, the Greek islands, Turkey, and so on and so forth. And we touched a little bit last time about it, but it's not only that. We even scraped the surface, as they say. You should know that Ladino, or what they used to call when I was a kid, we didn't call it Ladino. We used to call it Spaniolit. Spaniolit, from like a nickname, talking about those Jewish nicknames. Was spoken in Israel for hundreds of years. As a matter of fact, that was the language spoken. In Yerushalayim especially, when there was a more well-established, even though extremely poor, but well-established Jewish presence throughout history, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. The spoken language was Ladino. All the big Chachamim, they came from Spain, and so on and so forth. They all settled down, a lot of them settled down in Yerushalayim, a lot of them settled in Tzfat, a lot of them settled down in Yerushalayim as well. The language was Ladino. I had a friend in Israel, Ashkenazi she'en kamo, His grandmother was Yerushalmi, and she spoke Ladino better than me. I spoke Ladino when I started to speak. My mother spoke to me in Hebrew. My grandmother spoke to me in Ladino. That was her language. So I'm a bilingual from birth, but I spoke Ladino, and I used to communicate with my grandmother through Ladino. But she was Ashkenazi. I mean, I was 13. I don't know. She was already she was old, but at the time everybody is old, I think she must have been I don't know, 70, something like that. She was at the time really old, which is very interesting, when being 50, you're closer to 70 than you are to 20, but you still in your mind think you're 20. That's the problem. That's when things get a little weird. Anyway, let's go back to this. We'll leave this for some other time. However, she spoke Ladino. Why? Because in order to communicate with the people in the neighborhood, you had to speak Ladino. So they all spoke Ladino. Yes, you had those, who until today look like they fell out of Mars or something. They never intermingled with they left the Yiddish, and until today, not a part of any society whatsoever, just their own, which I think ultimately is bad. I mean, to be so secluded in your own country, that's bringing the exile into the Holy of Holies. But nevertheless, let's talk about some more positive things. So people spoke Ladino. People spoke Ladino because they communicated with each other. They did not speak Ivrit. Hebrew was not a common language to speak. It was preserved for more religious rituals and so on and so forth. They spoke Ladino with each other. They spoke Arabic with the Arabs. They spoke Turkish with the Turks. And later on, the British came and messed everything up. But that was it. So you had to speak Ladino. The old people from Yerushalayim spoke Ladino. Old Yerushalmis, most of them spoke Ladino. There were communities that the language in the street was Ladino. In Yerushalayim. Were we talking about Yemin Moshe or Nachalat Moshe, or all the neighborhoods around Shuk Machane Yehuda? There was a famous play that they made at the time. He was just Niftar, the former Israeli president, Yitzhak Navon. He made a very famous play. It's called Bustan Sfaradi. Bustan means an orchard, it's a Sephardic orchard, which really describes the life of those Jewish Sephardic neighborhoods in Yerushalayim. It became a classic. Very interesting, very interesting. It's okay, you don't have to say I'm sorry anything. Just come in and go whatever you need. So it was really a wonderful thing. I mean, he showed how it was preserved. It was just like a different world. Again, I can't explain to you enough the sweetness of this culture and the people with it, and what a tremendous gift this could have been to us as a nation, having such a cosmopolitan, tolerant, and yet extremely proud community. And that was the Ladino speakers. We don't have it today. Today, extremism celebrates. The more extreme you are, the better it is, and therefore we became celebrities of extreme. And it's very bad. Jews survived better in those countries with the Ladino culture. Yes, they were poor, but the whole world was poor. Because the character, or they came along with this society, was more, because being cosmopolitan was more of a tolerant, because you cannot be cosmopolitan when you're intolerant. And that was the background. That's where everything grew. All these unbelievable works of Jewish thought and halakha and whatever else come because of that. Was on that ground of tolerance, of open-minded, celebrating your Judaism out of strength, not out of fear, being able to be a part of society, but yet never lose your Jewish identity, knowing who you are, and so on and so forth. And we lost it. We lost it together with the language. We lost it. A culture goes together with its language. You lose your language, you lose your culture. What happens in the state of Israel is a different story to begin with. I don't want to get into it now, but I guess it has its roots in Marxist and communist agendas, which are not to my liking whatsoever. But we lost it. We lost it. And basically almost forever. Again, it was really I keep on thinking about it, that we were talking about the King of Spain, saying an apology at the same time that we were talking about Spain never said an apology. But what he said in his apology, it was almost like, I wouldn't say prophecy. Again, I told you I don't want to be a fool, but it was really, it came from within. The fact that I feel very much that they owe it to us, the Spanish people, this country, an apology to the Jews for what they have done to us. And yet when the King of Spain stated his apology, go outside and tell him that. Yeah. What are you, sign language? So when the King of Spain said that, he said, we really miss you, because Spain lost everything when they lost the Jews from there. So it's a great loss. I can't even tell you that. Maybe you could find, but it's all in Hebrew. Maybe you can find online. It's called Bustan Sfaradi, but it's all in Hebrew. So I don't know if you don't understand Hebrew. It's just. I remember those places like Yemin Moshe, where my grandparents lived, with my father lived in Jerusalem. It's a different world. It's just a different world. Or when my other grandparents lived in Etzion, when everybody over there, a lot of people spoke Ladino, and you felt it was completely different.
Like I haven't seen you guys in forever.
Yeah, I know. You weren't here yesterday. You were busy in class. But you took turns. He's not here, now you're here. He's coming, okay. So, that's something for you guys to think about in terms of the where are you going with your Jewish experience, with your religious life? Where are you going with it? Are you going to, and it's your decision, and it's your life. Are you going to go with everybody on the path of extreme, or are you going to try to reinitiate? You cannot recreate that culture. Once it's gone, it's gone. You don't do resurrection of the dead. Because all the the whole environment of this culture is gone in terms of the neighborhoods, the people, the literature, and so on. That is gone. That is gone. However, we need to maintain it. That's the biggest argument, as I told you a million times, with my uncle. He's very smart but very dumb. And that's the argument. He said, it's dead, leave it alone. I said, no, yes, it's dead, but you need to, like you're building a tombstone, right? Sometimes you need to build a tombstone, a proper burial ground for something, so at least so people would recognize that something important was here, they could learn from it. So therefore, what I'm saying to you is don't recreate the Ladino culture, because it will be impossible for you to recreate it. However, you need to commemorate it. You need to learn from it. You need to learn it, in order to maybe being able to create a new experience and a new culture of open-mindedness and greatness and tolerance. When you are tolerant, I didn't say when you are an appeaser. An appeaser is a very bad thing to do. You're not an appeaser. Don't appease people. But when you have tolerance, of course within the boundaries of reason, but when you have tolerance, you're freeing a lot of resources that otherwise you would have allocate towards hatred and extremism. To be extreme takes a lot of energy. To be tolerant frees you a lot of energy. So take that to become a bigger person, a bigger man. Think big. And this is, I think, the cure to our society, because our society is a very, as much as open-minded as we think we are, we're a very close-minded society. It is very judgmental. And that's why we try to push agendas down each other's throat without saying, okay, there's room for everybody. A person never said it's too small. There's room for everything to grow. Of course, if you're not posing a threat on my life and so on and so forth. But if we all coexist, that's okay. Listen, Jews and Muslims lived very well together. As a matter of fact, Jews and Muslims live better than Jews and Christians. However, when Muslims became more radical, that balance was interrupted. And now we need to balance it out. And then Christians became somewhat, because they're not, somewhat more tolerable. So we get along a little bit better. But the hatred is always there. But I'm not concerned with the interactions of the Jews to the world. I'm just using that as an example. I'm concerned with the tolerance we have or don't have for each other. And the society that we create is a society that tends, first of all, to reject, not the society that tends, first of all, to accept. And that reflects in the way we have halakha, we live halakha, we interpret certain things, because this is through, halakha is being, as the Rambam says, halakha is being interpreted every generation based on their experience as they see fit. So if halakha became very rigid, it's because we became very rigid. So instead of blaming the Torah halakha, blame yourself, because you are the one who created that halachic path. When you are a weak person, you need to overpower things by being very aggressive. And when you're strong, you don't need to show aggressiveness. So you have more time for leisurable things, to think and to be big and so on and so forth. And that was the Ladino culture. I'll show you, which is a thing altogether. In our society, literature is not a big deal. Well, how many people actually on a regular basis read a book? We don't. We don't read a book. We became junkies for TV? No, we didn't become junkies for TV. We became junkies for remote controls. We can't even sit down and watch a movie straight. Okay, let's see what's going on with this. Hold on 1 second. Let me pause the movie. Let me check my email. Can't even do that. As a result of that, we don't have a culture. There's no culture today. The culture that we have is not worthy to be called culture. It's a subculture. There's no culture today. People are not cultural. Look at the music that we listen to. Can you compare, for crying out loud, Frank Sinatra to anyone, I don't know, Adam Levine? All these guys who all they do is put tattoos on their bodies and they sing through a computer. I mean, for that, me with my frog voice that I have, I don't have a good voice. I could become a #1 hit singer. I'll sing through a computer. You make me sound like Pavarotti if I want you, if you want to. You know, it's like. So, those people, and don't tell me that culture is always a result of financial and economic growth and wealth, because that's not the case. Today we live a better life than everybody else lived in history of mankind. Today we live the best life. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know. Could be better, could be worse. I know that today we live better than they lived then, and yet we have no culture. And yet those people were able to create culture. For example, literature in the Ladino language, which represent the culture, was already developed in Spain. Those great minds, what we call Torah Zahav, the golden era of Jewish life. How much the Ashkenazim like to hate this expression. But in terms of Jewish flourishing, there was no, you can come in, you can do whatever you want, don't worry about it. You have a work to do, we just talk. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
But just don't smoke. They hate this concept of golden era. I mean, wow, but yes, it was a golden era. Look at people like Shlomo ibn Gabirol, Yehuda Halevi, all those great Ibn Ezra, all those great minds who not only was great Torah scholars, but they were great partiers. They knew how to live life. They wrote poetry. They wrote literature. They had culture. Why? Because of their ability to, first of all, become strong, to connect with the Jewish work, with the Jewish life, with the Jewish being, out of strength, not out of force, out of strength. Therefore, they went outside and they were able to do what they did. There was no, besides maybe in the United States, there was no time in history the Jews were so much involved in government and running government as much as it was in Spain. Maybe Spain and the United States. So that literature was already developed well into Spain, and of course a lot of, since it was the spoken language, further down the road, a lot of religious literature was translated in Ladino for the masses, for the people. And that was done after the expulsion from Spain. After that, they even continued further than that. It was already in Spain, but they continued more and more and more. For example, I'll give you an example. What we refer to as Rashi's script. That's not script that Rashi invented. Rashi's script, it's the real term for that is Ktav Sfaradi. That was the script that the people wrote. Remember, we talked about Chatzi Kolmus, when they used to write in that rabbinical thing, because they used to write with the reed rather than with the feather. So that's called Chatzi Kolmus. Ktav Rashi, when was written like this, was printed so the people could understand Rashi's translation or commentary on the Torah for the masses, because that's how they wrote. So it was first introduced in Spain. Rashi commentary was first introduced in Spain for the masses for that purpose. Since then we call it Ktav Rashi. Why we call it Ktav Rashi? Because that's how it was first printed. However, it was done for the people, for them to read. So even the Shulchan Aruch was translated into Ladino. I met a guy one time, he's a doctor, an Ashkenazi doctor, and he said he bought a rare, we were talking about books, rare books and so on and so forth. He said he bought it for $100. I said to him, you got the bargain of your life. I said, I'll give you 10 times more, sell it to me. He said, no way. He had a Ladino Shulchan Aruch, the whole Shulchan Aruch, Maran, not the commentaries. The whole Shulchan Aruch, Maran Bet Yosef, in Ladino. He bought it at some garage sale somewhere in the Bronx. He said, I'll give you 10 times more. The best invention. No. But, so that was translated. For the people to know, that was translated in Ladino. In the Shulchan Aruch itself, you find a lot of language that was Spanish/Ladino. Like when he talks about cookies, it says bizcochicos, bizcochos. Right? Bizcochicos are cookies that they make, special. Until today, by the way, all the stuff that they make, mainly, unfortunately, the Ladino culture until recently was only preserved for food, because that's what people continue, producing, because grandmother cooked, and then the mothers learned, and then the grandkids liked what grandmother made, and so on and so forth, and that's how it was preserved. However, there was somewhat of a revival. So the Shulchan Aruch, for example, and there's a lot of words in Spanish, as we said, in Ladino, in the Shulchan Aruch as well. Books like Shevet Musar, first famous sefer, Eliyahu HaKohen HaItamari from Izmir. He wrote sefer Shevet Musar, a tremendous book about morals and ethics and so on and so forth. Was also written and translated to Ladino. Maybe the most well-known works that was written in Ladino, of course, is Me'am Loez. Me'am Loez was not written like we have today, where the Nevi'im, Ktuvim, and so on and so forth. Me'am Loez was not written the whole entire thing by one person. It was started by Rabbi Yaakov Kuli. And it was written in Ladino, and later on some other people, with the encouragement of Chaim Palachi, Rabbi Yitzchak Magariso, and so on and so forth, continue writing it. But originally, the original Me'am Loez was the books of the 5 books, Yehoshua, Sefer Yehoshua, and Megillat Esther. That was the original one. All the rest were written inspired by. So that's why I like the translation of Aryeh Kaplan better, because he translated straight from Ladino, not from the Hebrew one, which is somewhat inaccurate. So the English Me'am Loez is more loyal to the source because of the great knowledge of Aryeh Kaplan had of Ladino because of his mother. As I explained to you before, his name was not really Kaplan, his name was Carmona. As you can find in the first book or so of Me'am Loez in English, his name was Carmona. He was, became a Kaplan. And that was something that was made for the masses. Very difficult to find old, I'm talking old, over 100 something years old books of Me'am Loez. Why? Because people use them. As much as it's very difficult to find ancient Sidurim or old Sidurim, because when they got bad, they just put them in the Gniza. But it was written for the masses. You look today at Me'am Loez, you get overwhelmed with the amount of information. Rabotai, that's what the people read. The people. So today that we sit in Yeshiva, and we learn Gemara, and we're doing this, and we think that we are, Aleinu L'Shabeach, we're the best thing ever happened, we have a problem reading the Me'am Loez because it's so overwhelming. Guess what? Regular people used to read it. Regular people. So look at the regular people then, and compare them to the Chachamim of the time, and try to compare us to the Chachamim of that time. It's just impossible. It's just impossible. In the way we experience Judaism today, is a big change and a big diversion from what it used to be. And that's what it is. It is what it is. You try to make the best out of it. Now that you can make the best out of it. There was also non-religious literature writing in Ladino. The romancerot were those songs that they used to sing, and I remember my... No, it's okay. אין בעיות.
You want to eat something, guys?
לא, זה בסדר, אנחנו נגמור את השיעור, אנחנו נבוא. תודה רבה מותק, תודה, השם יברך אותך. For example, my mother told me that my grandparents, when they were in Turkey, when they live in Turkey, Motzai Shabbat, they didn't go to eat pizza. So They used to make some kind of a dish. It's called halva de parida, like pregnant halva. They used to make some cheap stuff with china. You make it with honey. I don't know, whatever you do, and so on and so forth. Or parida or preñada. I don't know, one of those two. Don't remember anymore. And couples used to come. 4 or 5 couples used to come to their house, and they used to sing songs. They used to sit together. They used to serve some things. They used to sing songs. And the songs that they used to sing were romancerot. Basically, Spanish song, romancerot. Basically, Spanish songs talking about the experiences Morano Jews being chased by the Inquisition. Stories, songs about love and all kind of things like this and so on and so forth. Some songs about religious experiences through that and on and on and on. The famous one at the time was, of course, they were all gathered by a person. I think his name is Yitzhak Levi or Yitzhak Cohen. Yes, his daughter is a Ladino singer. Yasmin Cohen, I think, Yasmin Levi, so the name is Yitzhak Levi. He collected all these places, all these romancerot, all these songs, folk songs, and he actually wrote the notes for the music in which they sang. So a famous addition for that, of course, was Yoram Gaon. Yoram Gaon, his family is originally from Sarajevo in Yugoslavia. His father was a teacher in Turkey as well. Okay, let's not get into his family story. You can look it up. But since he was a Ladino speaker, he's Yerushalmi. He's from Yerushalayim. He's Yerushalmi, you knew Ladino. As much as Yitzhak Navon, the president, even though he's from Moroccan descent, from Tangier or from Morocco, he spoke Ladino because that's what the people spoke. So he put out songs, 2 albums, I think, of Ladino songs. Great productions. Of course, everybody knows the song Cuando Re Nimrod. Remember? Cuando Re Nimrod, la camposalia miraba él. Right? That's a famous song, right? Avraham Avinu, Padre Querir, right? This song. Where's your Rebbe? He's not here today. He played his mother the song Arvoles. Arvoles, remember this? And so on and so forth. A lot of the songs were really, it's from, and those songs, a lot of them are from the medieval time. Why? Because you see the tempo of the songs and the topic of the song. About a girl being in a tower, locked up in a tower, and comes Prince Charming. And there were 3 sisters who, one fell in love with a sailor and one fell in love with a non-Jew. And you see, you can learn a lot about the interaction of Jews and non-Jews. It always existed throughout, it was preserved in the song. Those romancerot were sang, written, and handed over in Ladino as well. A lot of later on, they start to translate more into like the 1900s, 19th century, should I say. They start, and they later on into the 20th century, they try to translate a lot of literature from other languages like French and so on and so forth into Ladino, French especially because the influence of Kol Israel Chaverim Alliance, which did a horrible job in trying to erase any kind of Sephardic and religious identity from the Jews in places like Greece, Turkey, Iran, and so on and so forth. They did a horrible job. I mean, they did a good job, but horrible to us. They were so very efficient into, quote-unquote, modernizing the Jews and erasing any kind of religious and backwards Sephardic heritage out of them. So French was a big thing. France, of course, was a big thing. So they translated a lot of stuff from French. There is some books that were also, it's called Toldot Israel, the stories of the Jews, 13 volumes, and so on and so forth. Today, Ladino is not a main language anymore. Today, Ladino is not spoken as a main language. It's not a day-to-day language. Today, Ladino is more of like a research language. There are a few institutions, Machon Ben Tzvi in Israel, Machon Cervantes Institute. In Spain, believe it or not, Ladino has somewhat of a revival. My bright light uncle goes there and gives lectures many times about that. All over the world, they have classes about Ladino. You can actually learn Ladino online as well. There are classes for Ladino. There are universities who teach Ladino. However, as a spoken language, is a dead language. In Israel, a lot of people now, because people need backgrounds, people do need some roots to grow on. A lot of the 4th generation people are trying to reconnect with the Ladino culture, and there is some kind of an awareness. So everybody sings songs, but I'm sick and tired of hearing the same songs over and over again. They should come up with more. I mean, they have all this, so they should come up with new songs. A lot of Spanish people in the 70s were making return to Ladino. There's some American groups that made Ladino songs and created a medieval sound that for me is a little foreign, but yet they created a medieval sound with Arabic instruments and combination of Renaissance instruments and so on and so forth. But mainly today, those places are a hub for maintaining the heritage of Ladino rather than to reinstitute Ladino, which I absolutely understand. I'm trying myself to put my part in that, and for years I've been collecting all kind of traditions of Jews of the Balkan, Saloniki, Greece, Rhodes, and so on and so forth. To put a book like this is a lot of money. I don't know if I'm ever going to put it out. I have it on the manuscript at home. Yeshua helped me to retrieve some of it when the computer crashed out. But to put a book is a lot of money. I don't know if I'm ever going to put it out, but I'm having it there. If it's not for anybody else, at least for myself, so I have some background. In Israel, they started to do some laws about preserving the Ladinos, but every time government comes in, money comes in, and then you divert yourself from the good intent, or even though it could be some good things, but that's basically what it is. There are some magazines and some publications that is published in Israel. A lot of them was a famous one, as we mentioned before. It's called Aki Yerushalayim, here in Yerushalayim, all published in Ladino. I remember my grandmother, Alaa Shalom, used to read. If I'm not mistaken, it was a weekly. They used to have Ladino newspapers. One of them, I remember the names. One of them was La Verdad, the truth, almost like Pravda. La Verdad. The other one it wasn't the same. The other one was La Luz, the light, La Voz, the voice, and so on and so forth. Together with the death and the disappearing of these people, I'm talking about my grandparents' era, those things are gone. I remember there used to be radio stations in Israel. It started with the immigrants, so every group of immigrants used to get its own hour or half hour of language, so they used to have Ladino on the radio. I don't think they have this anymore. I don't think anybody will listen to it anymore. So therefore, it became more of a language that exists within the walls of universities and institutions, and an occasional production somewhere, but eventually, unfortunately, it is gone. It is gone. Okay, so the language is gone. And I would rather everybody speaks Hebrew than speaking Ladino or Yiddish, to that matter. They're both foreign. They're both not Jewish. Hebrew is the holy language. Some kind of anti-Zionist people make a whole living out of that. But Hebrew, speak Hebrew. You're a Jew, speak Hebrew. There's nothing better than that. However, you should increase your awareness of what those people had created, because they did create a golden era in Judaism. Learn from what they did. Research this culture, not to imitate it. Research this culture in order to learn from it and enrich yourself. When each and every one of you as an individual become more enriched, you will have a better society to live on, a better experience as a Jews. So you got work to do. Don't be lazy. Don't forget what I told you. And just do it. Have a great day.